Cannot see any changes. Right. Okay, I guess we are live now. So hi everybody who's joining us today. Just a couple of more moments and we're ready to begin. Okay, I'm just checking the settings so everything will be working fine. Hope that we will not have any technical issues today. So hello everybody. My name is Jan and I'm privacy practitioner. I'm helping companies stay compliant with the privacy laws and help them to actually reach compliance in personal data protection. So this series of webinars that I'm launching, that actually I'm having the last couple of weeks, they are devoted specifically for different topics that most businesses sometimes are not aware of. They're really helpful and useful for every business owner, for every founder, for actually any website owner, or maybe even mobile app developer, right? So anyone who has any relation to personal data of their users, of their customers, so all these topics, they are related to these actually issues. And I want to remind you, so maybe someone joined us earlier, that the issue that I'm covering during these webinars, they are more of practical nature, and I'm trying to explain like difficult privacy laws, difficult privacy regulation in plain language, in business language. It would be easily to understand. It would be easily to figure out actually what is this about, what actually you as a business owner need to perform in your activities to stay compliant. Maybe you need to adjust some privacy operations, some business operations, right? So just to get you some useful insights and just some useful tips, and which you can actually implement right away. So during the last webinar, we actually talked about privacy policies, about other publicly available documents that should be present on the website, on mobile app, and we also talked about their types of consent. How do you actually need to get consent from your users, that they need to agree to this policy, to this privacy policy, to get your privacy policy enforceable, to be ensured that it works and it will actually protect your interest, right? So it will not just be a document that somewhere present, but it really works. So and we talked about like mandatory documents, like what you will like for 100% like must have, and we talked about optional documents. So sometimes it depends on the type of business operations which you actually engage in. Sometimes it depends on the nature of personal data you're actually collecting and processing. For example, if you talk about children data or some sensitive data like health data, you need to get some specifics, right? And all these topics were covered actually during our previous webinar. And I figured out that I didn't cover all aspects that are truly important, right? That I wanted to cover during the previous session. So that's why I decided actually to hold this second webinar, the second part of this topic. And today I want to concentrate on specifically the structure of privacy policy, how it should look like, where should you actually, what actually sources, what kind of documents, maybe regulations you need to check before developing privacy policy or even revising if you already have one. And for sure, I also want to talk about some nice to have habits for developers, for business owners, for founders, and the issue that you need to avoid doing when you work with privacy policy, when you're developing it, or maybe when you're just finding someone to actually to help you with these issues. So let's start with the first part of this webinar, and we'll talk about the structure of privacy policy. So first of all, I want to say that there is no such rules. There is no any rules, any specific requirements to how actually your policy shall be structured in terms of what is first, what is next, what is the third point of its structure. I mean, like content plan, right? So there is no such requirements. And one of the most important aspects when we talk about privacy policy, about the development of privacy policy, is that you need to be user-friendly. So first of all, your privacy policy serve your user, your customers. So it's not about like just placing some kind of legal document and like forgetting about it, right? No, you need to be, you need to understand that this document is a live document. So during your business operations, during your business cycle, you can change. Your business can change. Your business operations can change. Moreover, regulations, privacy laws change all the time, especially when we talk about United States. We have 50 states. As of now, only 20 states have their privacy state regulations adopted, active regulations. And anyway, I mean, there is also a lot of other laws like federal regulation that can apply to your business. You can also have the privacy laws from other countries, right? Because if your business operating globally, it's presented like you're targeting users from different countries, not only the United States. For sure, other laws might apply to you as well. And that is like the main two reasons why do you need actually to treat your document, to treat your privacy policy as a live document. So you need constantly update it, you need constantly check the changes that have been made both in regulations and in your business operations. These are the two main reasons why we're actually talking about this. So as about the structure, so as I've told you, there is no special rules as to the order of this. Like sections of the privacy policy, but we will be logical and we will try to highlight all the aspects how they usually present it in in normal in standard practice, and why they should be there, why actually you are required to have them. So first of all, you usually see introduction section. This is the section that will highlight your company details. It will explain your role in this process and operations with regarding actually personal data. So there is two main roles in processing personal data. You can be either data controller or data processor. In most cases, when we talk about your having a website or mobile app and having some users coming to it, browsing it, maybe even registering depending on your functionality, we talk about data controller role, because you are the person that define the purposes of this data that you are collecting and actually the scope of data that you are going to collect. And when users come to this, the first thing that they need to check is for sure your role, how you are acting, what is your responsibility towards this data. So this information is usually presented within first section, within overview or introduction section. This section is also important to mention that the scope of services which this privacy policy covers. So let me explain you. So sometimes you might have, as an owner, as a founder, you might have different websites, for example, and you might have different sources. They might be connected to the one product, to the same services that you are providing, or they might be unrelated. And it's important to highlight to which, what is the scope, the whole scope of services that this particular privacy policy covers. Meaning, so whether you're whether this privacy policy is, for example, common for several of your products, several services, or is it just specific to this website that users come to and it doesn't regulate any other aspects. So you also need to highlight this in the first section. I mean, it's recommended to do this in this first section. And another aspect that I usually recommend doing is to highlight the scope of data categories, to which this privacy policy apply. As I have mentioned, we have different types of individuals that might come to your website. They might visit it. They may not be they might not be your customers. That they might not even become your customers, right? But anyway, they come to your website and some types of data are collected, right? Like from passive collection behaviors. So this privacy policy needs to highlight these categories. Like, for example, we are collecting data from website visitors who just come browse some website pages, and that's all, right? So they don't leave any contact details. They don't actually enter any information through website forms. They do not register. They do nothing, but they still the information still can be collected through, I've told you, like cookies or tracking technologies, for example. And you can also for sure have your customers, your clients, who maybe this time are registering on the website or signing in, right? Or maybe they did it before and they just come again, they log into their account, they perform some actions, whatever. So this type of individuals, they are called like clients, customers, right? Whatever, right? So, and this is like the other introductory part that you nice to have in your first section, in the overview section, because you need to highlight to what types of data categories it will apply. Because again, you might have also another types of individuals that, whose data you are collecting. It can be your employees. It can be, for example, job applicants. If you have special resources, maybe you even have special page dedicated to collection of their personal information, right, when they apply for jobs. And this category is absolutely different. They have different rules. You have different obligations, requirements toward this category, and probably you will not cover these individuals within your privacy policy that applies specifically to the provision of the services. So that's why we are actually need to differentiate these groups. Okay, so next section, usually presented within privacy policy, is the scope of personal data you're collecting. So this is about what is the data that you are collecting through, actually from your data categories, from your individuals. And here you describing both voluntary shared information that your users come and share with you, as well as passively collected, like through the cookies, through pixels, different advertising tags, everything that is not visible, that users, like normal standard user, he or she will not be aware of this. Yeah, if for example, they never had this before, they never heard about this, they might even don't know that this information is collected passively. But still, it's also a type of information that is collected that you need to disclose within this section, right? Some types of data can be collected from third parties. For example, when you're having, when the type of your website functionality has some third-party sign-in form, like Google sign-in, maybe Facebook sign-in, I don't know, any other social media sign-in. And in this case, this data is shared by these vendors, by these third parties with you, because users authorizing them. So in this manner, they didn't provide it specifically to you, but they use this functionality that actually helped them to share this data with you. So this is like the examples of how this data can come to your business, and you need to understand that you don't only mention in this section the data that your users share with you, like through your website forms, or when they contact you by email, or when they sign in on their website. No, you need to remember that you have all other categories as well. So as for the next section, usually after we have defined the types of data we are collecting, we are thinking about what actually the purposes of this data collection, like why this company needs this data from me, so how they actually will use this data, like for what purposes. And this is the other part, the other section that we need to clearly describe. We need to accurately describe all types of purposes, all these categories of purposes, how you are going to use the data of your users. You need to be specific. Remember that it's really bad practice when you are like using too vague language, when you are like describing something like over broadly. When you see some formulations or wordings like we are using this data for business development, for improving our services, like nobody can understand what it means. I mean, how users, how like person, just normal person, like individual that have never had any chance like even reading any privacy law regulation, how they can understand how you are going to use this data for business improvement. Under this category, you can include everything that you can imagine. You can use this data for, I don't know, for for any AI use, right? So you can try to maybe train use this data to train AI models because it's for your business improvement, right? So this is not their issue, right? You need to be specific. You need to clearly describe like what are you going to do. If you're talking about we are going to use this data for provision of our services, and in this case you need to be aware that your services are clearly described to users. So they should be described either in your terms of services or they should be described in this privacy policy, maybe in the first section. So users could review this and they understand, okay, this is the scope of services they are going to provide to me, and that's why I need this data to share with them. The same, for sure, a lot of business need data for marketing purposes, right? But there is why actually we are doing this when we disclose these purposes, because we have different legal grounds of processing of personal data. Sometimes you can rely just on contractual need, meaning that you need this data because I need to provide some kind of services to these users. So, for example, if a user wants to purchase some kind of product from your website, for sure you will need their details, their contact details, their shipping details, because otherwise you will not be able to ship these products, right? But if we talk about sharing some types of information, like, I don't know, like gender, sexual orientation, like date of birth, so all this data, they are kind of odd, and you actually don't need this data to provide just regular services to this individual. And it might be like the person might think like, why are you looking for this data? Why do you actually need this? So you need to be always clear about what are you actually going to do with data, right? About the purpose. So, and when we talk about, for example, marketing purposes, right, as I've mentioned, we need to understand that it's not only about disclosure of the purposes. You will also need to follow specific requirements, specific obligations with regard to getting consent of your users, right? And some privacy laws even oblige you to disclose their legal ground under which you are processing this data. For example, GDPR. It will clearly state that you not just only need to clarify the purposes for personal data processing, but you will also need to clarify on which actually legal basis, legal grounds you are going to process this data, like contract necessity or under consent, for example, like for marketing purposes. So this is about purposes. Next issue. Next issue is really important as well. It actually clarifies all your parties, all your partners, third parties, vendors that you are engaged with, and whose services, maybe whose functionality you are using in order to develop your services, in order to provide the services. Sometimes you also engage some partners, advertising networks, any affiliate, in order to market this product, your product, or if you engage these partners, they can also target users with their own products, with their the products of other parties. And this is really one of the most essential blocks within privacy policy, because some laws, specifically if you talk about Californian privacy laws, they do oblige you to disclose all categories of third parties you are sharing information of your users with. You need to be clear. It's not obligatory to describe, to name actually every vendor, every service provider you use by name, right? But you're obliged to provide clear categories of all these vendors or any providers that you are engaged for any type of your business, or for any purpose for your business operations, to develop or to maybe to provide some services. Remember that even external contractors, they can be actually regarded as your third parties. They are not your internal employees. They are not treated as your part of your controller's obligations. That's why they are separate, and you need to place specific obligations on them as well. But this information is also need to be disclosed to your users when you talk about disclosure. So this section is all about like the categories of vendors, the categories of third parties you are going to share this information with, and actually like the purpose for sharing. For sure, it's not just enough to describe that we are going to share this information with 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's all. You need to describe the purpose. Like it shouldn't be like a big sections, right? So with all these details, but it should be clear, specific description of the purpose. If it's ad networks, if you are engaged with their advertising platforms that are actually going to use the data of users for cross-context behavioral targeting, for sure you'll need to disclose this. Moreover, you also need to provide their choices for your users. We'll talk about it a bit later, to be able to opt out of this processing actually and sharing activities. So this is about sharing. Next sections, it's I would say it could be optional only in cases when actually your business operating locally. Under locally, I mean like within one country, for example, and you are 100% sure, you have checked it several times, that your data staying within one geolocation, within one country. You do not share this data with any third parties who are, for example, presented, who are actually somewhere, anywhere in the world, not in this country. Only in this case, you will not need this. But this is pretty rare, I would say it like right now. So it's international transfers of data. So most global businesses, most actually online businesses, they are presented, even if not worldwide, they presented several countries for 100%. And it means that when you actually have your location in one country, for sure you have users coming from different countries, from different locations. And for this purpose, this section actually served to clarify for this purpose for this person that this data, they can be shared, they can be transferred cross-border, right? So meaning that they are not staying within this location. So for example, you have company in the United States and your servers are located in the United States as well. Even if you're using, for example, third-party cloud provider, and you actually not physically storing them within your location, but for sure their servers are located somewhere, and they can be located in the United States as well. But at the same time, you have a lot of users, a lot of individuals coming from the European Union, from United Kingdom, from Australia, Canada, whatever. And all these laws, they do have obligations towards you as a data controller about disclosure of how actually you take care about the data of these individuals. How do you ensure that this data will be processed, will be collected and used in a compliant manner with their regulation, with their local laws. And that's why this section serves like specifically this purpose. So we also have another important section, which actually can be pretty, I would say, pretty broad, and sometimes it's even broke down in different sections, and I will explain you why. So I'm talking about user rights and about user choices. So this is the section all about their privacy rights that you are given, that actually you are ensuring that your users, your customers will have. And sometimes different regulations have similar rights, like for example, right to know what data is processing, what data is collecting, right to correct some information, right to delete the data. So all this data is pretty similar in most privacy laws that are active worldwide now. But some laws, like European Union law, GDPR, like California Consumer Privacy Act, for example, they do have specific rights that should be guaranteed, that you as a data controller should ensure your California residents or your European Union residents have when you come to your website, when they visit your website, when they do any actions with when they do actually relate with you in any way. So that's why you might see a lot of privacy policy that have specific sections designed to different to actually designed for users from different regions, from different countries. Because if company is subject to any of these laws, or maybe even all of these laws, if it's like a global big company, yeah, right, like there's plenty of them, and they are subject to all these laws. So for sure they need to ensure that all data subjects, all individuals from different countries, their rights are guaranteed. That's why they usually they prepare in separate annexes, maybe like additional exhibits to the privacy policy, which regulates specifically the rights of residents from these countries. So this like how it can be figured out, right? And for sure, also privacy policy will also have the special section with the contact details. And it's really important one to have. Even sometimes some laws even actually obligate you to have 2 or 3 types of contact tools that the users can contact you, how they can exercise their rights, right? So the contact section is really important. And another one, which is also one of their obligations, is the actually change date or the update date of your privacy policy. You need to be, as you actually regularly need to review the privacy policy, you will also need to keep your previous version of your privacy policy, and you need also to inform your users how you are going to inform them when this privacy policy have been updated, or for example you have updated it and it will come into force, for example, in one month, right? So you're making this advance notice to them, and you're explaining how you're going to use this, how you're going to do this in the future. So this is like the basic structure, and we didn't cover any specifics of different privacy laws today, because if I talk about this, it will not be enough 30 minutes to talk about this, right, today. But you need to remember that the first issue that you need to check is for sure, like, what is the list of privacy laws that apply to my business? So do I need to check California regulation, or do I need to check European regulations, or maybe Canadian, any other, Brazilian? There's plenty of them, and all of them have for sure specifics that might differ, or might add something more to the one that I've mentioned, right? So remember, this is the first main point. So I had a specific webinar designed to this topic about which privacy law applies to your business, which actually can help to understand what are the main questions you need to ask yourself to be able at least to understand their potential scope of these privacy laws that might apply. And from that point, you are going to develop the structure, you're going to understand how you're going to structure your privacy policy, what you need to look for, and what you need to ensure it has. So that is actually, we are wrapping up our webinar for today. As I've told you before, so if you actually have any other questions, or maybe you are having any clarifications, maybe you want just to hear some more details on some specific topics, right? So I would be really glad to reply to your comments, to your suggestions. So you can always reach us in our MarketLex LinkedIn page, right? Or you can also write to personal messages to me as well. So. And don't forget that we are actually having these webinars every week, every Thursday. So the next week I will also have the next session. Actually, I will talk more specifically about the roles of data controllers, about data processors, how actually you as a business owner can be at the same time in different roles, and sometimes not even everyone is aware about this. So we will define this, and I will also provide you some practical tips on how you can figure out what is your role in this privacy operations. So thank you again. Thank you for everyone who joined us today, and see you next week.